Welcome back to Real Clear Radio Hour, brought to you by the Competitive Enterprise Institute. I'm your host, Bill Frezza. We're here at the JW Marriott in Washington, D.C., having breakfast with Lisa Kennedy Montgomery, self-made media celebrity, host of The Independents on Fox Business, and master of ceremonies at last night's Competitive Enterprise Institute's 30th annual dinner. Kennedy, welcome to the show.
Why, thank you so much.
I look at Wikipedia and I see you listed as a political satirist, a game show host, and a television personality. Different neck of the universe. What is that all about?
Well, I've never considered myself to be a political satirist.
Well, that's what they say.
Whoever wrote and edited my wiki page put that down. So bless their bones. Game show host, yeah. I put myself through college hosting game shows on Game Show Network in the early aughts, which was a fantastic journey. It was great. And game show hosting is, by the way, a magical, wonderful profession.
And it's very wholesome.
Pat Sajak will live forever, and he is probably the happiest man working in broadcasting.
Well, it's better than that Duke girl who put herself through school doing porn flicks. So I guess
I would much rather turn letters than turn tricks.
There you go. I mean, I grew up with game shows back in the days of 3 TV networks. That's all you had. You weren't even on Hollywood Squares at one point?
Oh, yeah. I loved Hollywood Squares. I would go on and promote my game show on Hollywood Squares. And I would meet like Anna Nicole Smith and Carrot Top and Alf. Where else are you going to? Yes.
Oh, God. Yeah, I know.
Puppet.
So you got yourself through college on game shows, and then you became an MTV VJ?
No. Wrong order.
Uh-oh.
Nope. I started interning at a radio station. I got an internship.
Now, give us a year. When was this?
This was in 1991. So I started interning at the biggest alternative station in the country at the time, K-Rock in Los Angeles, which is a seminal, iconic alternative radio station.
All right.
And it was one of the few alternative stations in the country, really popular, and I got a job as an intern there. And it was the kind of place where it was wild. And the DJs had been on the air for a long time, and there were stories from the decades before I got there that had already become legend. And so I was very eager to add the lexicon that people at K-Rock spoke in. And I started interning and got a job on the air as a part-time DJ, doing overnights, of course, because that's your first shift.
Spinning discs and commenting.
But normally in broadcasting, especially in radio, you start in the smallest market and eventually over the years move your way up and hopefully get a job in one of the big markets like LA or New York. And, I started in LA and got a job doing overnights, and it was it was beyond phantasmical. Like it fulfilled all of my deep and bubbling professional fantasies.
And you got to work all night and sleep all day?
No, I didn't sleep all day. That's really where I developed my work ethic for the first time, because I would, work from 1 to 5:30 in the morning, and then I was the in-studio intern for the morning show, and would work until 10 in the morning with them, and then plan the show afterward.
So that was long duty.
Yeah, long days, and I didn't care what it took. I wanted to pay my dues, and then my boss at the radio station, who was this 25-year-old guy just filled with ideas. He could see any people and any situation, and these new ideas would spring from his head. And that was the first time I was really exposed to someone who was a marketing genius. And I realized that, if you took your perceptions and you sort of boiled them down, you reduced them to this bright, colorful picture and showed the rest of the world how effective that could be. And so MTV took notice of his marketing skills at the radio station and hired him to be the senior VP of programming at MTV. And that's how I got my job.
He pulled you along with him.
Yeah. So I actually had done an audition with a woman at MTV in LA, and then they got together, and because they both wanted to hire me and have me audition, that's how I got the job in the fall of 1992.
So you're living the life that every communication major dreams of. In college, were you a communications major?
No. I mean, when I first went when I was 18, I only went for a couple weeks to Pasadena City College. And I was going to major in political science, but I was taking a communications class. But then I stopped going to college because working at the radio station was so much more fun. And of course, since it was a pretty loose place, they weren't checking my grades. They weren't checking in with my professor to see if I was still enrolled. So
So you stayed an intern? And
yeah, I stayed an intern for the year and then
never
moved
looked
on.
back.
No. Why would you? You have to take the opportunities that present themselves. And if they don't present themselves, you have to make them.
You haven't bought into the propaganda that you can't have a proper life without a college degree?
Well, no. I mean, I bought into the idea that I really wanted to learn stuff. And something felt incomplete
There's a
to me.
concept.
Well, and then when I was done at MTV, I moved to Seattle, started doing talk radio, learned a totally different craft because talk and music radio are completely different from each other. And I was in Seattle during the WTO riots, and it was a very political place.
Well, let's come back to that because I don't want to skip over MTV. So you're a learn-by-do kind of person rather than learn by sit in class and listen to a lecturer.
I eventually found my way to college and UCLA after Seattle. So then I moved to LA in 2000, got really bored. I was doing a morning radio show. And then in 2001, I enrolled in college, in a city college. I didn't have a high school diploma. I'd essentially failed out of high school, but had all this ambition and desire and curiosity. And then, when I was 28 and eventually found my way to college, like that was the perfect time. That was a perfect fit.
You were ready and you wanted to learn something
and
different.
I had been competitive and, somewhat successful in, the real world. And it's so much more fun when you go in reverse and apply that to college because you're hungry for the A's and you will squash people in their dreams and destroy the curve. And it's the most satisfying thing in the world.
Let's go back to the Kennedy Chronicles and MTV, and I'm just Googling, and I come up with a picture that looks like a comedy version of Miley Cyrus.
No, that was taken in 1994 by Mark Seliger, who is a world-famous photographer, and that was for Us Magazine before it was Us Weekly. So we had done this wonderful photo shoot all day long, and then he pulled me aside, and he said, I brought a donkey in.
Yeah, can you get naked and jump on top?
Yeah, because I was a Republican, and he said, how funny would it be if you were on a donkey? And he said, I've got this great costume for you. I've got boots and a little skirt. And I said, that sounds fantastic. He said, but I think what would really sell the picture is if you weren't wearing clothes. And I said, I don't think that's a good idea. And he said, no, it's a great idea. And my press person, the minder from MTV, he left me at the photo shoot once he realized that, the makeup person was there and I had the clothes that I liked. Like he
so
took
the
a
responsible
powder.
adult was gone.
Yeah, the responsible adult was me. It was wholly irresponsible. Absolutely. So I took that when I was 22.
With red glasses.
They actually weren't. Those
They
are
photoshopped?
rose-colored. Yeah, so they.
Rose-colored
Yeah, because
glasses.
the subtitle of the book is "The Golden Age of MTV Through Rose-Colored Glasses." So they photoshopped some rose-colored
Well,
glasses.
it's a beautiful picture. I got to give you all that credit in the world for that. And what did you learn from MTV? What was it like there?
MTV was really fun. It was the first time that I was a political outsider in a very political time.
You call yourself a Republican.
Yeah. No, I was
And you didn't
absolutely.
get fired.
No, I think they thought it was kind of a novelty because, I was an army of one.
Did they believe you or did they think you were faking?
I think on some level I believed what they believed. And it wasn't necessarily true, especially on the fiscal stuff.
Yeah.
I thought they were all out of their gourds. And I was really worried that, moving into these Clinton years, because he was elected in the fall that I started at MTV, and everyone at MTV just had Clinton fever.
Sure.
And I felt like I was the only one, and,
Didn't drink the Kool-Aid.
no, I felt like the house was on fire. And I'm the only one, screaming, call
get out, get
911,
out.
and everyone's sitting around watching the Waltons. So it taught me that no matter where you are, you have to maximize the moment.
Carpe diem.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to, no matter if it's an interview, if you're meeting someone, if you see someone famous that you really want to talk to, just talk to them. Be polite, be cordial, introduce yourself. Chances are they will say hello back.
Well, it's the mark of a great entrepreneur. Pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone. Call the CEO of the company you want to do business with.
My dad always said, and my dad is from Southern Indiana and has these John Wooden like little witticisms, and he always says, if you don't tap the prom queen on the shoulder,
Right.
she's never going to dance with you.
Right.
And and that always stayed with me. Like if you don't make the move, whatever it is, if you don't ask that last question, if you don't introduce yourself,
If you don't
it's
ask for the
never gonna
order,
happen.
right?
Yeah.
It's something they don't teach in school. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So you moved to Seattle.
Yes. After MTV,
Yep.
I was dating a pro snowboarder, and
Well, that's conservative.
yeah, it's
Yeah, Republican, naked on a donkey, dating a snowboarder. Okay, I
well,
get it.
You should read the book. There are other people I dated that made him look like an altar boy. And he broke his back. And so when he
Oh.
broke his back, I moved to Seattle with him because I realized when he was injured how much I really loved him and wanted to be with him and how that was so much more important than the life that I had lived for 5 years.
This is the broken sparrow syndrome. You can nurse him back to health.
I did, yeah. We nursed each other back to health. I mean, that was the great thing was I found my identity with him while we were playing, par 3 golf and going to the Mariners games. And, while he was slowly nursing himself back to health, I was figuring out what it meant to be an unfamous civilian and how life could be fulfilling and I could find an identity outside of people knowing who I am. And that was really critical to my personal development.
And career-wise, what happened at that point?
That's when I started doing talk radio. And it was, it was a much smaller scale, and it allowed me to find my voice. Because it was FM talk, so I wasn't expected to do, like, the typical, I'm so angry about this, I'm taking callers. Yeah. No, I would have, like, Eddie Spaghetti from the Super Suckers in, followed by a psychic and, some comic, and we would just have these outrageous conversations. And, Howard Stern is one of my role models, and I love the way he interviews people, and I really tried to learn how to do good interviews and engage people about ideas, and sometimes disagree, and sometimes laugh. And so that was an important formative time for me professionally as well.
It's funny. I know Howard Stern from his earliest shock jock days back in New York, and I disengaged when he got a little bit too crazy. We were chatting earlier this morning about how he's matured as a talk show host. I miss that altogether. What's your perspective?
I honestly think he is the best interviewer in all of broadcasting. He really is. There's no one who comes close. Not Bob Costas, not Diane Sawyer, not Charlie Rose. Howard Stern has the most fascinating long-form interviews of anyone in radio or TV.
I think it's because he's turned 60?
I think it's because he's had a great deal of success, and he's a naturally neurotic person, and he spent so much time trying to figure out how he ticks, and he knows that people can't hide from him, and people often try and do that. And
because he's out there. He's all out there.
And it's much more interesting.
No concept of privacy.
No. But when you get to someone's real core, when you feel like you learn something from them, it's not only a valuable skill, it's a gift to people who are listening. So then I left Seattle. I got a great internet morning show. It was an internet radio show before there was internet radio, and that was the problem. Because they told me they had secured 2 years of funding. And so I was really excited.
An internet-only show?
No, we were on terrestrial as well in small markets.
Okay.
And it was a fascinating model. And so I moved to LA with my husband. He was hesitant because he loved Seattle. And, he was sad to leave the mountains and the bald eagles and the turtles. But we moved close to the beach, and he started surfing. And then he started a snowboard company in Huntington Beach. He bought a factory in Huntington Beach.
So he returned to his passion.
And started making snowboards. And now he's the founder and president of the thriving snowboard company.
Does he still snowboard?
He does.
Did the broken back teach him a lesson?
He broke his back again after that first time. But now he and I are learning that you have to listen to your body. And, you got to play your own game.
And somehow in the middle of all this, you're raising a family.
Yep. That's when the internet site went bust after 6 months. And that's when I really started going to school full time and started doing the game shows.
Okay.
And then I got into UCLA, graduated from UCLA, 10 days later had a baby, and then started.
Good timing.
It was unbelievable timing.
Did you plan it that way?
Yes, I did, because I wanted to have a baby when I was finished.
The thermometer.
I had no idea, so I wanted to have a baby when I finished college. And so I told my husband it took like a year, and he's like, oh, great. And then after the first try, I was like, you are not going to believe what this stick says. There is a plus sign. And it was awesome.
We got you back on the East Coast now.
Kind of. I go back and forth.
Oh, you're bicoastal.
I am truly bicoastal.
Okay. So you maintain a home in L.A. and you come to New York
Yes, I'm in New York 3 days a week, and I'm in L.A. 4 days a week.
So tell us about the new venture at Fox Business. I know you've got a show there.
Yeah, Fox Business it's amazing. Like, it's an incredible place. I love the people there. I love the energy. It's so much fun being in a live news environment with people who are funny and curious. And, I love the people that I work with. So what happened was I was at Reason Weekend sitting around a hot tub with John Stossel's producer at the time, Christy Kendall, and Matt Welch.
This is the Libertarian hot tub.
Yeah, this is the Libertarian hot tub. Exactly. It was a Libertarian hot tub. We're all sitting around, and Christy's husband was like, what do you really want to do? And we realized that it would be the most fun to work with people that we really enjoy being around, talking about the stuff that's most important to us in a way that's conversational. Because in conversations, like, sometimes you get really mad. Sometimes you get mad at your friends.
Right,
Sometimes you get mad at people you just meet. A lot of times you just jackass around and you laugh and you have a great time. And then other times you just shut up and learn.
It's less stilted than a lot of other forms of conversation.
Yeah.
Certainly on media. So what's the name of the new show?
The show is called The Independents, and we're 4 nights a week on Fox Business, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. And it's so much fun, and it's a great learning experience for all of us. And we're all very passionate, and we share a lot of the same ideals and point of view. And there are times where we totally differ. And I have 2 co-hosts, Matt Welch, who's the editor-in-chief of Reason Magazine, and Camille Foster. And Camille is this wonderful entrepreneur who is, he's had tech companies. He's part of a group called Free Think Media, and they produce like fascinating documentaries. He's a really good, solid person, and he has a totally fresh perspective on free market economics and race and culture, and he's obsessed with Kanye West, and we give him endless grief about that. And, you know, he and I have more disagreements than he and Matt or Matt and I do, but he's so funny, and I learn a lot, and we really engage each other.
So you have an agenda. How do you package your product to match that agenda?
We're just honest about it. You know, it's like we're called the Independents because our feeling is, like a lot of people who become libertarian, and I'm a philosophical libertarian, I'm not a member of the Libertarian Party, I'm a registered independent, you get sick of both parties. And, you know, I've seen my husband succeed in a business just doing it himself. It's a very DIY model, and that has been not only informative but inspiring for me. You know, it's like seeing the American dream manifest, because it's a difficult thing to slug it out, and he's doing it. So I take so much inspiration from that, and I feel very protective of him, and I don't want the government standing in his way, which in California, when you're trying to make things, there are so many hurdles, there are so many regulations. And, you know, personally, with kids, I see it. You know, we live in a safe world, but you would think that the world was pointy and dangerous and filled with predators at every turn.
We had Lenore Skenazy on, the Free Range Kids mom, and she's made a profession out of outing all that.
And by the way, Lenore is she's one of those people who's really opened my eyes to the fact that in so many ways it's such a safe place, but we are so unfree. And I don't want, like, my oldest daughter comes home and you know, she gets really worried about global warming, and she asks me all these questions because they're indoctrinating them with this propaganda that we're all going to die very soon, which is a cruel and horrible thing to do to young kids. And studies have shown, they did studies in the UK, that it's increasing childhood anxiety. And that's
they're
unforgivable.
They're training the voters of tomorrow. That's what that's all about, isn't it?
I guess they are, but I'm having a conversation with my girls on a daily basis about thinking for yourself and critical thinking and looking around, and things aren't always as they appear. And counterintuitivity, I don't know what the word would be, counterintuition, I guess. That, you know, it's really a wonderful model for parenting and living. And Matt Ridley and John Tierney were talking about that at the CEI dinner.
Well, most politicians do not want you to think for themselves. It's inimical to their goals.
Yes.
And that's part of the challenge.
And that's why so many people are independents, and that's why the show works for a lot of people, because we see politicians on both sides who just want to spend money and destroy your freedom, and what you have should be yours, whether it's ideas or money or your family, and we will fight to make sure you get to keep that and thrive.
Do you think there's any hope for the established parties?
Is there hope for the established parties? There is hope for individuals, and if they want to get together... we're kind of stuck in this two-party system. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. There's one race that we're looking at in Florida. Lucas Overby has been polling really well with a lot of undecideds against David Jolly. And I hope he wins. I hope a libertarian candidate wins. And I was really happy to see the chaos unfold when Eric Cantor lost. Because you know what? It's the voter saying, you're on notice. And the media could not figure out why that happened, which only adds to the beauty.
If they made you czar of fixing the Republican Party, where would you start?
I would start by making Justin Amash president. But he's only 21, so I don't think that can happen.
Do you have any better ideas than that?
There are a lot of great people that I would put in leadership in the Republican Party.
What about policies? Policies, platform, focus, agenda.
I think Rand Paul has had the best roadmap. You know, there are things that I disagree with him on. I don't think that he's a perfect politician. I don't think he's a perfect person. But he's got some fantastic ideas, and he's able to reach people with a lot of integrity. And, you know, there's something about that that's admirable. I don't hold on to the notion that any one politician is going to fix things, because I think at some point they're all politicians and they will all compromise. And if you put your faith in them, you're only setting yourself up
for disappointment.
Total disappointment.
He seems to be reaching the youth. Can he reach the Hispanic voters?
See, that's the thing. Like, I don't like lumping everyone together. That drives me crazy.
That seems to be how they do it,
I know,
though.
that's how they do it. But it's like, you know, I don't think of myself as a white woman voter. Like, what are the other white people doing? What are the other voters doing? What are the Virgos doing? What are the Oregonians doing? What about brunettes who are 5'8"? I've never lumped myself into those categories, and I hope that people stop doing that.
The press is working overtime to get them to do more of that.
Yes.
So as a journalist, how do you weigh in on that debate?
I mean, I always tell people, don't vote for Hillary because she's a woman. Find your candidate, find your issue. And, you know, every once in a while, vote for a different party or a different person than you normally would. Get a little bit out of your comfort zone. And I know there are a lot of libertarians who think that voting is a scam. I love it. Like, I work at my polling place. I think voting is fantastic.
Really?
Yes.
I'm surprised, because if you actually look at the numbers, it rarely pays.
Yeah, but you know what? It's not about like a single vote. My feeling is, if I'm voting and I feel this way, there are other people who are also doing the same thing.
So Kennedy, you're at 41. I guess I'd call that mid-career point. Where do you see yourself going in the future?
I want to keep talking. I want to keep learning. I want to engage people. I want to write books. And wherever that takes me, I just like being on the carousel. I'm happy to be here. I love Fox Business, and we'll see how far we can take it.
Well, we had fun with you at the CEI annual dinner. You certainly roused up the crowd and got everybody in the right kind of festive mood. Very much appreciated.
That is a great and rare thing, to have a room full of people in Washington, D.C. who are so ready to throw out the energy and have fun with one another. And, you know, from the moment that we heard Lawson Bader's opening remarks until the last person left the karaoke room, which I'm sure was at 3 in the morning.
I bailed out at about 12:15.
Yeah,
so.
it was great, though, because people were having a really good time. And it wasn't just about the networking. There were so many important ideas shared from the stage, especially from Tierney and Ridley. And I like that because I always learn something. It makes me go back and read their books and read their columns and try to become a more informed person so I can lead the discussion.
It's been a thought-provoking experience to get involved with all these people and certainly get a chance to meet folks like you. Thanks for being on the show.
I loved it. Thank you so much.
That wraps up our show for this week, coming to you from the JW Marriott in Washington, D.C. You've been listening to Lisa Kennedy Montgomery, host of The Independents on Fox Business, here on Real Clear Radio Hour, brought to you by the Competitive Enterprise Institute. I'm your host, Bill Frezza. Look for us every Saturday at 10 a.m. and again at 6 here on Bloomberg Boston. See you next week.